Hello again. Our cash-in-transit heists have again come under the spotlight after at least 19 suspects were killed in a shootout with police in the Limpopo town of Makhado last Friday. Now, let's discuss this crime now with Senior Training Coordinator at the Institute for Security Studies, Willem Els, who's joining us now this afternoon from Lusaka, the capital of Zambia. Also, Limpopo Hawks spokesperson, Lieutenant Colonel Matimba Maluleke, will be with us. And finally, the Forensic Investigator at Bizz Tracers, Calvin Rafadi. Gentlemen, good afternoon. Welcome to today. And thank you very much for joining us for this discussion. First up, Lieutenant Colonel Matimba Maluleke, let me start with you. Is the country currently experiencing a spike in cash-in-transit attacks?
Thank you very much, sir. Yes, it was experiencing a spike in relation to cash-in-transit robberies. But as you have seen what happened last week, Friday, we are trying by all means to eradicate the scourge of cash-in-transit robberies in the province and in the entire country, where we have seen about 19 suspected cash-in-transit robbers being killed in Makhado. So you can see that we are trying, as the Directorate for Priority Crime Investigation, to fight this scourge.
And Willem, let me bring you in there from Lusaka. From the ISS side, you do this research now and again. You look at crime scene, at crime stats and all of that in South Africa. What are you seeing when it comes to CIT?
Good afternoon to you. Good afternoon to the panelists. Yes, I would agree with the Colonel. We have to commend the police on the events of the last week. But there are two things that we are seeing here that is very important. You know, apart from the statistics that are actually unsatisfactory high, we have two things that we can commend them on. In the first place, what happened in Makhado was an intelligence-driven operation. That means that they had good intelligence and they followed up on the intelligence. Secondly, we see that they compiled a task team to combat this thing, and that therefore we see that they had a very big success with this one. Yeah. We know that they are thinly spread, but throughout the country, if we can follow this this model, I think we will make inroads into the spike in cash-in-transit robberies.
Because setting up a task team means they're giving it a priority and they're focusing on it. Calvin, I mean, is that the right approach?
Yeah, good afternoon, Braden, and good afternoon to your viewers and the panelists. Yeah, no, forming a task team, it is definitely a good approach. But I would like to now add and differ because of these spikes of cash in transit, they are escalating. There hasn't been a particular skill is being transferred into recruiting new boys to come and commit these particular crimes, and with so high number of guns, especially automatic rifles. So therefore, they are in an increase. I think the security companies that are in this space, they are doing quite well in increasing some of their securities. Like, you know, in the old days, they never had those dying stain cases, whereby even when the van is rammed, the money will just come out as it is. But now they've improved, they've got dying stains into some of their vans. But at the same time, the issue of the Makhado, it is very worrying, but it is a good action that they've taken. But you know, one can say we should be careful not to you know, use like the old apartheid tactics or the so-called death squad. I will call it that way. The reason being, to quantify my statement, Braden, is that if something is intelligence-driven, one needs to. There are measures within subs like your task team, your POP, which you've got your hostage negotiators that can even minimize to you know, be trigger happy and surround those suspects and apprehend them. Unlike killing all of them, as we've seen, is a high number, by the way, and we believe that some of them were innocent, like, you know, the garden boy who's Alex Munyambi. I mean, one can say, okay, why was that person killed? And then we had the justification of the police saying that the person was inside the house, so he could have long tipped the police. But remember, this was an intelligence-driven operation, so they must have known the data and profiled all those suspects, including those who are trigger A.
Yeah, Colonel Maluleke, are you able to shed a little bit of light of what happened there? I mean, did the police really have to open fire the way they did and end up killing 19 people?
Can you please repeat the question? I'm losing you a little bit.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, proper.
Yeah, just following on what Calvin's point was saying, that if this was an intelligence-driven operation in Makhado, just one example we're talking about, the police ended up in that shootout. I mean, he's thinking it was not maybe necessary to have had 19 people being shot and killed, that the tactic could have been different. Did the police in this particular case, from your information, have any choice?
Yeah, well, you will remember that we are fighting serious organized crime here. And the citizens of this country, they have got a responsibility to report crime when they see it happening in their eyes. So those who were in that house, remember that we found AK-47s, we found the R1s, we found the R5s, we also found the explosives in that house. If one was not part of that CIT, would have reported to the police that I see something here, maybe they are trying to kill me. But if you see the firearms, you see the explosives, and you don't bother to report, maybe you know something about it and you know that you are safe. Because you'll remember that we visited two safe houses that day, the one in Makhado and the one in Thohoyandou. Those who were found at the one in Thohoyandou, they were not shot at because they were not armed and they didn't even shoot at the police. So the problem was that the ones that were found in the house at Makhado, they shot at the police. That was the problem, and they were heavily armed. And you can see one of our members was seriously injured. So that can tell you that if our members were not properly trained, they could have been killed as well.
Okay, but are the police equipped to deal with criminals? Because you've just mentioned these criminals possess high-powered weapons.
Members who are trained to deal with this kind of situations. So whenever there are planned operations, we call them, and then we form the so-called multidisciplinary team, and then we approach that particular situation.
Yeah, there's always the potential risk, of course, that some innocent passers-by or people in an area like that might be affected generally. But Willem, you sort of give credit to the police for using intelligence and setting up a task team. Do you think this approach that we saw in Makhado should be replicated or duplicated elsewhere in the country as the police continue to fight against the CIT robberies?
Yes, you know, we must just understand the background of a threat that we are dealing with here. The police are facing more and more and increasingly violent criminals who are very well armed and who are not afraid or scared to fire at the police and to attack the police before even the police can attack them, as we saw here. When the police were approaching, according to information, they actually started firing on the police. But we must also understand, whenever the police is conducting an operation like this, they had a lot of time to plan. They had a lot of intelligence coming in. We don't know what the intelligence was that they had, but they had to work with what was available. And also in my experience in 28 years in the police, when working in an operation like that, you don't always have just a plan A or a plan B. Sometimes you have to go to plan C, depending on the volatile situation, also a fluid situation that you are dealing with. Always one of the first things that when you are planning in the police, from my experience, you know, you will have to try to minimize collateral, and that is the public that is surrounding that areas. So you would go in and you would like to end this situation as soon as possible, with the least amount of damage or collateral damage to the surrounding public, because at the end of the day, their safety is the concern of the police as well. So we understand that the police are dealing with extremely violent, but also in extremely difficult situations. It's not easy to approach these type of criminals when they are hiding out between the public, in between the public.
Yeah, it's not easy. I just want to shift the conversation to a different level, just to ask a broader question. I'll start with you, Calvin. I mean, we've just seen this example in Makhado. Yes, it's got questions around maybe how the police behave, but we've heard from Lieutenant Colonel Matimba Maluleke that the police really had no choice. They were fired upon. But just moving it along, do you think government is doing enough, or the law enforcement agencies are actually doing enough to firstly use intelligence to prevent such dangerous incidents from occurring, and secondly to deal with them effectively?
Yeah, no. You know, we are living in a democratic country, and you know, as we all know that the police somehow they are under-resourced. So, like I said, and to repeat it, let's say the people, some of the innocent people that were in the house, if you are to check their phones, maybe perhaps they were calling 1011 and they couldn't get through with to that number. Like other residents, they sometimes complain. Or let's say you check if they did fire any shot, you know, with the gunpowder called the residue on their hands or even clothes, then you find there's nothing. But what we are saying is we are living in a democratic country. As much as we hate criminals, we've been in operations where we give a tip-off to the police to combat such operation whereby they've got intelligence driven. But what we are saying also, police are under-resourced, we understand that, but with the help of the community and the securities, they are really making progress. And we are trying our best to also give out the information, especially when crimes are about to happen or who has committed the crime. But at the same time, we must also be careful that police shouldn't, they must follow the law. They shouldn't be captured by private security companies. And we believe there were private security companies even in Makhado. And if an inquiry has to be opened, we must first know what was their role. Were they shooting also at those criminals, or what is the situation? Because we believe, according to our researches, that many of the police officers, they leave the force or they retire from the police, they jump into these private security companies. And whilst they are there, they must also obey the law.
Okay. Lieutenant Colonel Maluleke, how do you respond to that? I mean, can you share some light to the claim by Calvin that there were some members of the private security companies present in Makhado last week? Is that the case?
Yeah, well, when we conduct our operations in most cases, you will find that there are private security companies that we interact with. So, but when it comes to the operational part of it, we know that it is our responsibility as the police to lead that operation, to be at the forefront. Those ones were there just to support us in what we were doing there.
They were just there to support you. And Calvin says you are under-resourced. I mean, do you think government is doing enough to make sure you've got the proper resources to tackle such crimes like CIT robberies, Colonel?
For sure, what happened last week Friday, it can tell you that although we can never say we have enough, but we are managing with the resources that we have, because we never ran out of ammunition and we never ran out of anything that we needed to execute that operation. So with the little resources that we have, we are able to contain any situation.
So you are managing. Willem, what more? You've mentioned that you were impressed, so to speak, with intelligence and the task team, and that could be replicated. What more do you think the law enforcement authorities can do to prevent such crimes from happening?
You know, in the first place, and you mentioned it now, you know, we have to invest, and the government have to invest more and more into intelligence. Intelligence is the eyes and the ears of the police, and you know, when the police receive intelligence, like what happened with the second house that was hit by the Hawks, where you know there were no killings, there were no people hurt there, because they had good intelligence, they were able to move in. So if we can have more good intelligence on other cash and transits, and you know we have almost one cash and transit heist per day in South Africa at the moment. So we you know, if they can have intelligence on the majority of them, we can preempt and we can stop those cash and transit heists before they are even committed. You know, and that will be a wonderful deterrence for these criminals and will prevent them from perpetrating this act. Because every time that they hit a truck, just a truck alone, the value is about 2 million rand, and then you start with the money that is being lost. So that is a tremendous hit to the economy that we are looking at here. So yes, with intelligence, we really need some more. I think we should invest more in that. But secondly, the challenge that we have, is good investigators. For all of these cases, need a thorough investigation. You need to throw your time, your manpower, your resources towards that. But unfortunately, so our people are overwhelmed. Your detectives are running with more and more case files and dockets, and they cannot do a thorough investigation because there are just not enough feet on the ground to counter this and to investigate the spike in all of these criminal activities.
And the caseload is getting bigger and bigger, and fewer boots on the ground, so to speak, to deal with these matters effectively. What more do you think, Calvin, government should be doing to support the fight against CIT?
Yeah, no. I think at the moment they are doing well. But remember now, like we said, with the CIT, the same tools that are used. Because with the CIT gangs, what they normally need is the cars that they will use, and then it's the ammunition that they will use. Now, most of them, they've resorted in their other, hustle. They also do the kidnappings. So we definitely do need a lot of tax team in that space. And then crime intelligence, they need to up their game and then leave politics alone, because especially towards the election, we do know that the crime intelligence, they belong in many fiction, and they use some of these resources to boost their bodies within political parties. And that's why now you see the likes of your organized crime like DPCI, they end up not being supported by crime intelligence. So they need to be monitored, and they need to channel the right resources, because they do have resources. Like our colonel will understand when we speak of Act 70, and Willem will also understand. Those are measures that they are at the disposal of crime intelligence to combat crime before it can happen.
Yeah, Colonel Maluleke, I mean, you are in the Hawks. From your perspective, you did say you are getting some resources, but what more do you think, for example, the security cluster, the government's security cluster and law enforcement cluster can do more of to enable you to really make progress against CIT robbers?
Yeah, well, as the researches are being conducted, I believe there will be some recommendations there as to what is it that the government need to do in order to enhance the operational environments, particularly in the police, so that we can work effectively with all the resources that are needed. So that is going to help a lot.
Okay. Gentlemen, thank you very much. That's where we're going to wrap it. We've covered a lot of ground here, and thanks for your time, your insights, and your participation in our panel discussion here. That's Willem Els from the Institute for Security Studies. We're also joined by Limpopo Hawks spokesperson Lieutenant Colonel Matimba Maluleke and Forensic Investigator at Bizz Traces, Calvin Rafadi. Thank you, gentlemen.